Rain hit the city like 1,000 quiet fists that morning. The streets shimmered, and the air smelled of wet asphalt and new beginnings. Outside Crestwood Academy, that glass and stone fortress for the privileged, a battered bicycle rolled to a stop. A girl climbed off, plain shoes, faded jeans, hair tied with a blue ribbon that had lost its color long. Hugo and her name was Lila Moreno, and this was the first day she'd ever set foot in a place where people looked at price tags. Before they looked at faces, she stood for a second, staring at the school gates. Gold letters glinted across the archway. Crestwood Academy, excellence, honor, legacy. It felt like a warning more than a welcome. Need help finding the servants' entrance? The voice came from behind her, smooth, amused. A boy in a tailored uniform leaned on a black car, twirling a keychain around his finger. Lila didn't answer. She adjusted her backpack, the same one her father used when he was still in high school, and walked past him. "Hey, I'm talking to you," he said, stepping in front of her. He had the kind of face that belonged in a magazine, sharp jaw, careless smirk. But there was something hollow behind his eyes. "I'm guessing you're new. What's your name?" "Lila." She looked him straight in the eye when she said it. He tilted his head. "Lila what?" She hesitated. "Moreno." His smirk widened, recognition lighting up his face. "Moreno. As in Carlos Moreno? The janitor?" The words dropped like stones. Students nearby slowed down, pretending not to listen while listening to every word. Lila's throat tightened. "He's my dad." The boy laughed once, sharp cutting. "Didn't know they were letting the staff's kids in now. Must be charity season." "Enough, Adrian." A girl's voice cut through the air. She stepped forward. Uniform perfect, posture even more so. "You're making a scene," Adrian turned. "Relax, Clara. I'm just welcoming the newcomer." Clara's eyes flicked to Lila, not cruel but cautious, like someone watching a stray dog wander into a ballroom. "Ignore him," she said softly. "You'll get used to people like that." Lila managed a nod. "Thanks." But she didn't forget Adrian's grin or the laughter that followed her down the hall. Inside, Crestwood was another world. Marble floors, portraits of founders, air that smelled faintly of lemon polish and money. Every step echoed. Every glance felt like a measurement. She found her locker, number 312, wedged between polished brass and a nameplate that read, Adrian Keller. Of course. When she opened it, a folded piece of paper slipped out. She unfolded it. "Hope your mop fits in here too," drawn below. A cartoon of a janitor's bucket. Her fingers trembled for a second. Then she crumpled the paper and stuffed it in her pocket. She didn't cry. "Out here." By lunch, whispers were circling. "Someone," said her father, "once got fired from another school for stealing supplies. Someone else said she lived in the maintenance shed behind Crestwood." Lies spread fast when they had money to run on. She sat alone at the edge of the cafeteria, picking at her food. The laughter at the center table sounded like another language, one she hadn't learned. Then, out of nowhere, a voice behind her said, "Mind if I sit here?" It was Clara again. She had a tray in her hands and a calmness that didn't quite match her social rank. Lila blinked. "You don't have to." "I know." Clara sat anyway. "You looked like you could use company. Plus, I needed an excuse to get away from Adrian's ego." That made Lila smile, small, cautious, but real. For a few minutes, they talked about small things. Books, favorite subjects, how awful the uniforms were. But underneath, Lila could sense it, Clara's eyes flicking now and then, toward the other end of the room, toward Adrian, who sat surrounded by friends watching them. His expression wasn't anger. It was curiosity, the kind that felt dangerous. When the bell rang, Lila left the cafeteria alone, outside the main hall. She saw him again, Adrian, leaning against a locker, arms crossed. He looked up slowly. "You think you can act like you belong here?" Lila stopped. "I'm not acting." He took a step closer. "People like you don't last at Crestwood." She didn't move. Guess we'll see. For a moment, the air between them felt tight, charged. Then a voice echoed down the hall. Keller! Principal wants you. Adrian turned, annoyed, then looked back at her. Don't get too comfortable, janitor's daughter. He left with that. That night, Lila found her father mopping the east hallway. He looked tired. Shoulders stooped under the weight of long hours. When he saw her, though, he smiled. The kind of smile that softened every rough edge in the world. How was your first day, Mija? She hesitated. Fine, he studied her face. You sure? Lila nodded. Just a lot of new faces, he chuckled. Crestwood's a big place. But remember, floors are floors no matter how shiny. You walk with your head up. You belong anywhere you work hard to be. She smiled, barely, and hugged him. What she didn't see was the silhouette standing at the far end of the hallway. Adrian, watching them both in silence, and the flicker of something cold behind his eyes. The next morning, the rain was gone, but the air carried its memory. That cool, washed scent of a city trying to dry itself off. Crestwood Academy gleamed under the sunlight, glass corridors catching the light like mirrors. Lila arrived early. Too early. She preferred it that way. The hall's quiet, the smell of polish still fresh, her father's distant humming echoing from the lower wing. She walked past him, pretending not to notice how he smiled and waved with the mop in his hand. If anyone saw, she didn't want them whispering again. But of course, they already were. By second period, whispers had turned into stories. Adrian. Keller had a way of making words spread like perfume. Invisible, but impossible to ignore. They said Lila's father was caught snooping in the girls' locker room years ago. They said her scholarship wasn't earned, that her dad blackmailed the principal. They said she lived in a janitor's closet. It didn't matter that none of it was true. At Crestwood, truth cost more than most could afford. During literature class, Lila could feel the stares every time she raised her hand. Someone snickered. Every time she spoke, someone mimicked her under their breath. When the teacher turned to write on the board, a paper ball landed on her desk. She didn't need to open it. The laughter behind her said enough. She pressed her pencil harder into the page until the lead snapped. Across the room, Adrian leaned back in his chair, watching. There was something in his expression, not quite joy, not quite guilt, just curiosity, as if he wanted to see how far she could bend before she broke. At lunch, Clara slid into the seat beside Lila again. You shouldn't let them get to you, she said. Lila stared at her food. It's fine. No, it's not. Adrian's been telling people, I know. Clara sighed. He's not always like this. Lila looked up sharply. You're defending him? I'm saying... Clara hesitated. He wasn't always this cruel. His mom left last year. His dad... Well, you've seen how the principal treats people. Adrian's under a lot of pressure. Lila shook her head. That doesn't excuse anything. It doesn't, Clara admitted. But maybe. It explains some of it. Lila didn't respond. She just pushed her tray away and stood. Explaining cruelty doesn't make it hurt less. After classes ended, Lila went to the library. She liked it there. The hush of pages, the smell of dust and old ink. It felt like the one place where no one was looking at her. She sat in the corner by the window, reading quietly until the sound of laughter cut through. 3 students walked in, Adrian and 2 of his friends. They didn't see her at first. She kept her head down, then one of them pointed. Hey, Keller, look who's studying like she's got a future, Adrian smirked. Don't be an ass, Tyler. But he didn't stop them either. Lila stood up. You can say whatever you want. It won't change anything, Tyler grinned. Oh, it changes everything. See, we heard you're only here because your dad cleans up after the principal. Maybe you're next in line for Janitor of the Year? Adrian's jaw tightened. That's enough, the other boy laughed. Oh, now you're defending her? Adrian's eyes flicked toward Lila. No, I'm just bored. He turned to her. You really think you can make it here, Moreno? I don't think, she said quietly. I know. And for a moment something flickered in his face, confusion, maybe even shame. Then he looked away. We'll see about that. They left. Lila stood there shaking but unbroken. That night, she found her father fixing a pipe near the cafeteria. She crouched beside him, helping hold the flashlight. You ever feel like people look right through you? She asked softly. He smiled faintly. Every day. How do you deal with it? He wiped his hands, thinking, by remembering who I'm doing this for, by knowing my worth doesn't depend on their eyes. Lila looked at him, the wrinkles around his eyes, the calloused hands that told a lifetime of work. She nodded. You should have been a teacher, he chuckled. Not too honest for that. They laughed, so small, quiet laughter that somehow made the air feel lighter. But the next morning, everything changed. A notice appeared on the main board. Student locker vandalized, investigation underway. Someone had drawn graffiti all over Adrian Keller's locker. A crude sketch. A mocking phrase, principal's pet. Whispers spread again. But this time they pointed at Lila. She found her name murmured in corners. Written on bathroom walls. Hinted in conversations that stopped when she walked by. By afternoon, the principal himself called her into his office. The room was massive. Bookshelves, leather chairs, a portrait of Adrian's father looking stern and self-satisfied. Miss Moreno, he began, voice cold. We have a serious matter at hand. I didn't do it, she said before he even explained. He raised a brow. Interesting that you know what I'm referring to. She clenched her fists. Everyone's talking about it. Yes, he said. And all signs point to you. Her pulse quickened. That's not fair, he leaned back. Fairness isn't the point. Reputation is. Lila stared at him. At the same man who nodded politely at her father in the halls but never remembered his name. So you're accusing me because I'm easy to blame? He didn't answer. Then say it, she whispered. Say it out loud. His silence said enough. When she stepped out of the office, Adrian was waiting by the door. His eyes met hers. He opened his mouth, maybe to say something, maybe to lie again, but she walked past without a word. For the first time, he didn't smile. That evening, he found his father in the same office, shouting into a phone, Do you realize what this does to our name? My son humiliated by a janitor's brat? Adrian stood frozen. His father turned. You started this mess, didn't you? You and your games. Adrian tried to speak, but the words stuck. His father's voice cut like a blade. Clean it up, or you'll be out of Crestwood yourself. And just like that, the game changed. That night, Crestwood Academy looked different. Empty halls. The faint hum of fluorescent lights. The echo of a janitor's cart rolling in the distance. Adrian walked those halls like a ghost he wasn't supposed to be there. The dorms had a curfew, but his father's words kept playing in his head. Clean it up. The phrase felt less like an order, and more like a curse. He turned the corner and stopped. There she was. Lila, kneeling beside her father's cart, helping him refill the bucket. Her hair had slipped loose from its ribbon. Her sleeves rolled up, her hands stained with cleaning solution. For a long second, Adrian just watched. Something about it. The quiet rhythm of their work, the way they didn't need to speak to understand each other, made his stomach twist. He stepped forward. Hey, Lila froze, then stood. What do you want? I didn't tell anyone you did it, he said. She laughed, low, sharp. You didn't have to. You planted the seed weeks ago. That's not fair. She took a step closer. You think fairness ever mattered here? You humiliated me in front of the entire school. Now they think I'm a criminal because it's convenient for you. He swallowed hard. I didn't mean for this to go that far. Yeah? Her voice cracked. Then what did you mean? Silence. Even the air between them seemed to hold its breath. Then Lila turned away. Just leave me alone. Keller, he wanted to, he should have. But guilt, pride, and something darker glued his feet to the floor. The next day, Crestwood was buzzing. The principal announced that whoever vandalized Adrian's locker would face suspension, or worse. Students whispered, eyes darting between Lila and Adrian. Adrian watched it all unfold, a hollow ache building in his chest. He hadn't come clean. He couldn't. His father's threat hung like a noose over his head, so instead he made a decision. A terrible, cowardly decision. He'd set a trap. If he could catch whoever really did it, or at least make it look like he had, he could clear his name and take the spotlight off Lila. That was the plan. He left a new locker open after class, half filled with fake exam papers and a camera hidden behind a vent. Then he waited. Hours passed. The halls went quiet, until footsteps. A small figure appeared. A custodian, older, shoulders stooped. It was Carlos Moreno. Adrian froze behind the corner, heart pounding. He watched as the janitor adjusted his cart, set down a bucket, and opened the locker, probably just to clean the inside. The camera light blinked red. Recording. Adrian's mind raced. If anyone saw that footage, they'd think the janitor was snooping again. He stepped out. "Mr. Moreno," Carlos turned, surprised. "Adrian, you're here late." "I could say the same to you," Carlos smiled tiredly. "Work doesn't clean itself." Adrian hesitated. "Listen about Lila." The older man waved it off. "She's strong. She'll be fine. Kids say things. They move on. She's not fine," Adrian said quietly. "I made sure of that." Carlos studied him, his face calm but eyes sharp. "Then fix it." Adrian looked down. "I don't know how." "Start by being honest," Carlos said. "With her. With yourself." He picked up his mop and walked away, leaving Adrian standing in the dim hallway, the weight of his choices pressing down like a storm. The next morning, chaos. Someone had sent the locker footage to every teacher and student group chat. The angle was grainy, but it showed enough. A janitor opening a student's locker late at night. By noon, the principal had Carlos Moreno in his office. By 2, the rumor was everywhere. The janitor was the vandal all along. Lila found out between classes. She saw her father being escorted out by security, his eyes down, his mop still in hand. The hallway buzzed with whispers. "Phones out, recording everything," she ran after him. "Dad, what's happening?" He shook his head, voice trembling. "It's okay, mija. It's a misunderstanding." But she saw the humiliation in his eyes, the same look she'd worn 100 times in silence. She turned toward the crowd, her voice breaking. "Stop recording!" No one did, and then she saw him, Adrian, and standing at the end of the hall, pale, frozen. Their eyes met. He didn't move. Didn't speak and just watched as her world fell apart. That night, she sat outside their small apartment behind the maintenance shed. Her father was inside, silent, packing his few belongings into boxes. The cicadas droned outside. The air smelled like dust and regret. She whispered to no one. He did this. Adrian did this. The truth wasn't proven. Not yet. But she knew it like she knew her own heartbeat. And if the world wanted to treat her like she didn't belong, she'd show them what a janitor's daughter could really do. The next morning, Leela returned to Crestwood, not as a victim, but as something else entirely. Her eyes were steady, her voice quiet, and her plan already forming. She wasn't going to beg for justice. She was going to take it. The morning light hit Crestwood Academy like a spotlight, sharp, cold, and revealing. Students moved through the courtyard in nervous silence, pretending not to know what had happened the day before, but the truth clung to the air like humidity. Everyone knew. Everyone had seen the video. Lila walked through the gates alone. No backpack this time, no books. Just a folder tucked under her arm, and a look that made people step aside without quite knowing why. She wasn't angry anymore. She was past that. Anger burned fast and died young. What she felt now was something colder, sharper. She went straight to the computer lab. The teacher wasn't there yet. She slipped into a corner seat, turned on a terminal, and pulled out a small USB drive. Her father had taught her a few things. Not about cleaning floors, but about fixing machines. He'd been a maintenance tech before the economy crashed, before he ended up scrubbing the same buildings he used to service. Lila's fingers moved. Fast, she accessed the school's internal drive, found the security logs for the night of the so-called incident. Every file was time-stamped. Every camera labeled. She found the clip, the one everyone had seen. Then she found something else, a hidden folder, locked, but not invisible. Her heart thudded as she decrypted it. Inside, the raw footage from every camera in that hallway. The truth was sitting there the whole time. In one feed, the janitor's camera caught a figure walking into the hall minutes before her father. The figure wore a Crestwood blazer. He turned toward the locker. The camera caught his face for less than a second. But it was enough. Adrian Keller. Her hands trembled as she copied the files. Later that day, she found Clara near the library steps. The girl looked uneasy, eyes darting around like she was waiting for something to fall. "Clara," Lila said quietly. "I need your help." Clara blinked. "Lila, everyone's saying you're dead." "I know what they're saying. I also know who really did it." Clara hesitated. "Who?" Lila held her gaze. "Adrian." The color drained from Clara's face. "You're sure?" "I have proof." Clara looked down at the steps, her voice barely above a whisper. "He told me he didn't mean for it to go that far. But he never said he didn't do it." Lila's chest tightened. "Then you knew?" "No." Clara shook her head quickly. I thought he was scared. I didn't know he'd—" Lila took a breath. "I'm not asking you to pick sides. I just need you to help me get this seen." Seen by who? Everyone. By the next morning, the video had spread again, only this time, it wasn't the edited version. It was the truth. The full footage played across every screen in the school's main hall. Adrian Keller entering the corridor, opening his locker, adjusting something, leaving. Then minutes later, Carlos Moreno appearing, doing nothing but cleaning. Just like always. The silence that followed was heavier than any shout. Adrian was in the hall when the screens came to life. He froze. Every pair of eyes turned to him. Whispers began. Slow at first, then louder, building into a wave. "Wait, that's him?" He framed her dad. He lied. The sound grew until even the principal came out of his office. Confusion turning to horror as the truth unfolded in front of him. Adrian's father looked at the screens, then at his son. "Tell me this isn't real." Adrian's lips parted, but no words came out. The silence stretched, and then Lila stepped forward. "It's real," she said. Her voice was calm, steady. Every frame of it. Her father stood beside her, his work clothes still damp, his face pale from exhaustion, but his eyes proud. "You accused him," she said, looking straight at the principal. "You humiliated him. You let lies ruin our name because it was easier than questioning your son." The principal's jaw tightened. "Miss Moreno, this is highly inappropriate." "No," she cut in. "What's inappropriate is watching a man lose his dignity, because your pride wouldn't let you see the truth." The crowd murmured. Adrian took a step forward, voice breaking. "Lila, I don't," she said. "You don't get to apologize just because you got caught." He looked like he wanted to speak again, but his father's voice came first, cold, furious. "You've disgraced our name, Adrian." "Get out of my sight." Adrian didn't move. His father's words hit harder than any rumor ever could. The principal turned to Lila and her father. "I'll fix this." Carlos spoke for the first time. His voice was quiet, tired. "No, we're leaving. Some things can't be fixed with words." That afternoon, as they walked through the empty courtyard toward the gates, Lila felt the weight start to lift. Not all of it, just enough to breathe again. Clara ran after her. "Lila, wait." Lila turned. Clara looked torn between guilt and admiration. "You did it. You actually stood up to him." Lila gave a faint smile. "I didn't have a choice." "Still," Clara said softly, "not many people would have fought back like that." "Maybe that's the problem," Lila said. They both smiled, small and sad. Then Lila turned and kept walking, her father beside her. The sun warming their backs as if the world was finally letting them exist in peace, if only for a moment. But behind them, In the silent halls of Crestwood, Adrian Keller sat alone in the principal's office. The screens were dark now, but their glow still haunted the walls. He replayed her words in his mind. "You don't get to apologize just because you got caught." For the first time in his life, he understood what shame really felt like. The gates of Crestwood closed behind them with a hollow clang, the kind of sound that marks an ending. Lila didn't look back. Her father walked beside her, the morning sun spilling over his shoulders, turning his gray hair to silver. They didn't talk much. There was nothing left to say, not after what the whole school had seen. The walk home took longer than usual. The streets felt unfamiliar now, like they'd shifted while she wasn't looking. She passed the bakery where she used to buy day-old pastries, the small park where her dad once taught her to ride a bike on the only day he'd ever had off. For the first time in years, she noticed how tired he looked, not just from work, but from carrying the weight of other people's judgments. At the door of their tiny apartment, he stopped. "Lila," he said quietly, "you didn't have to do all that for me." She turned to him. "Yes, I did." He smiled, slow, proud, and sad. "You remind me of your mother when you talk like that." Lila's chest tightened. She'd have done the same. He nodded, eyes misting. She would have. Inside, the air smelled of old coffee and detergent. The boxes he'd packed the night before still sat by the wall, unopened. He looked at them for a long moment, then sighed. "Maybe we'll stay. Just a little longer?" Lila smiled faintly. "Yeah, maybe we will." Days passed. News traveled faster than truth ever could. But for once, the truth was louder. Students whispered apologies in the hallways. Teachers avoided eye contact. The principal issued a statement, formal and hollow. The administration regrets any misunderstanding regarding Mr. Moreno's employment. But Lila didn't return to Crestwood right away. She needed space, to think, to breathe, to remember who she was outside those walls. She spent her mornings helping her father clean a local community center. Different floors, different faces, people who said thank you, who smiled without looking down on her. At night, she studied by the flickering light of a desk lamp. The same scholarship books that had once been her ticket into a place that tried to break her. And sometimes, late at night, she'd think of Adrian. Keller, he wasn't at Crestwood anymore. Word spread that he'd been transferred to a public school across town. One, without marble floors or personal chauffeurs. The first day he walked through those gates, he felt eyes on him. The same kind of eyes he used to cast on others, judging, measuring, dismissing. He'd traded uniforms, but the silence felt the same. He sat alone at lunch. He flinched when people whispered, even when it wasn't about him. And when he caught his reflection in a window, he almost didn't recognize the face staring back. Less polished, less certain, more human. Sometimes he replayed everything in his head, the first insult, the laughter, the way Lila had looked at him. Not with hate, but disappointment. That hurt the most. He tried to write her a letter once. He never sent it. It sat crumpled in his backpack for weeks, the ink smudged by rain. "I'm sorry, not for getting caught. For who I was before that one afternoon months later. Fate, or something that looked like it, brought them back to the same street." Lila was carrying a stack of donation boxes from the community center. Adrian was walking past, head down, a faded backpack slung over his shoulder. He saw her before she saw him. For a second, he almost kept walking. But then she looked up. Their eyes met. Neither spoke at first. The city moved around them. Buses, chatter, the sound of a street musician's guitar. Finally, Adrian said, "You were right." Lila frowned slightly. "About what?" He swallowed. "About everything, about me. About how I treated people. I didn't understand what it was like, until I lost it all." She studied him, the expensive posture gone, the arrogance stripped away. He looked like someone learning how to exist again. "I don't hate you," she said quietly. He blinked. "You should." "I did," she said. "For a while. But hate's heavy. I've got better things to carry, he nodded, eyes wet. For what it's worth. Trying to be better. She gave a small, tired smile. Then start by remembering what it felt like to be powerless. Never forget that, he nodded again. I won't. For a long moment, they just stood there. Two people who had once existed on opposite sides of the same cruel system, finally seeing each other clearly. Then she picked up her boxes. Take care of yourself, Keller. Lila, he said softly, for what it's worth. Thank you. She didn't answer, but the look she gave him was enough. Not forgiveness, not friendship, just recognition. A quiet understanding that both of them were walking toward different versions of redemption. That night, Lila sat by her window. The city lights shimmered below, reflections flickering off glass like stars trapped in metal. Her father was asleep in the next room, snoring softly. The world felt calm for the first time in a long while. She opened her notebook and began to write. Not about Crestwood, not about pain, but about possibility. The kind her mother used to talk about before life got hard. Her words flowed, steady and certain. I used to think dignity was something people gave you, but I was wrong. It's something you keep even when no one sees it. She closed the notebook, exhaled, and let the quiet fill the room. Outside, the night stretched wide and clean, and the world, for once, felt like it belonged to her.